we're going to talk about a little bit more of climate, more of those like factors that affect climate. So we talked about the closer you are to the sun, the warmer you are. The closer you are to the poles, the colder you are. But let's talk about some other things. All right, climate depends on complex interaction. So we talked about latitude, elevation, ocean currents moving the warmth away from the equator, cold away from the poles, prevailing winds, and topography. Hello. Sometimes it does not like me. Oh, not again. All right, so Earth's annual revolution, because remember it revolves around the sun, creates predictable climate. So we have three main zones, okay, depending on the latitude. Remember, latitude is your ladder that you go up and down. The low latitudes, these are the tropics, okay? If you look along here, it's always warm, between 30 north and 30 south. It's hot all year round. The only exception is in the mountains of South America, and then Mount Kilimanjaro. On the top of the mountain, it's going to be cold, but that's something else. Other than that, it is always warm in the tropics. Okay, precipitation can vary how much rain you're getting, but besides that, it is going to be warm. Might be warm and cold, might be warm and rainy. The mid latitudes, okay, this is where you have variation in your temperatures. Okay, you might have warm, you might have cold, you might have some warm, and then you have some cold. All right, kind of like us, we have that, warm, hot summer. It gets a little cold in the winter, but then you go, a little bit west of here, and you have more extreme winter than we do. All right, you go further north, and you have 4 distinct seasons. I wouldn't know what it's like to have 4 distinct seasons here in Houston because we don't get that. Okay, but you do have 4 seasons in these temperate zones. If I give you a climate type and it's any kind of variation or whatever, it's probably going to be temperate zone or the mid latitudes. If it's cold, it's always the polars unless you're on top of a mountain, and that is the only caveat. That's the only exception. But the polar zones, it's always cold because you're so far away from the sun's rays. It's just cold. It's cold down here. It's cold down here. Then it's warm here. Okay, so if it's a climate zone that's like, it's rainy and warm, it's rainy and cool, it's dry and cool, whatever, you're probably talking about the middle latitudes. High latitudes, so again, these are your polars. It's always cold. It just is. See, you have your polar bear in the Arctic, and he's like, dude, it's cold up here. Okay, he's not in Antarctica, just so you know. Polar bears do not live in Antarctica. They only live in the north. Penguins only live in the south. They don't live in the north. The only time penguins and polar bears will be together is in a Coca-Cola commercial or at the zoo. Other than that, they don't ever see each other in the wild. It's a sad thought. I know. Gets me tears. All right, sea level. If you're at sea level, it's generally warm. Oh, this is talking about the rise in elevation. Okay, so think of a mountain. If you've ever been skiing or snowboarding, okay, you're like, oh, is it going to be warm or is it going to be cold today? Okay, and you look at the temperature at the base of the mountain. You're like, oh, sweet, it's 32 degrees at the base of the mountain. Well, if you're going up to the peaks or you're going up higher to, the terrain park or whatever, you need to know the temperature up there because you lose 3.5 degrees for every 1,000 feet you go. Okay, so if you're at sea level and it's 90 degrees, you rise to 10,000 feet, it's 55 degrees. You rise to 20,000 feet and it's 20 degrees. Think about like in planes, they have to wear they used to have to, I have like a hair or something here. They used to have to wear big coats and stuff because it was so cold in those planes, like during World War II, because you're up there in that high elevation. Winds and ocean currents distribute energy around the planet. All right, so the sun's rays hits on the equator. Well, then you have these currents, they're going to move that around, okay? Warm air moves away from the equator, cold air moves away from the poles, right? So you have this equatorial that comes here, and it goes into the Gulf of Mexico, okay? Then you have this Gulf Stream, it goes up our east coast, right? So over here, okay, that's warm water. if you want to go swimming off the coast of the United States and you want it to be warm, you go to the East Coast. The reason why, if you go to the West Coast off of California, that water's cold, sucker, because it's been coming down from the North Pole. Okay, it's cold, so that's why people go to California and they go surfing or swimming or whatever. They're like, oh my gosh, the water's so cold. No wonder they're always in wetsuits. Yeah, because this water's coming down from the poles, so it's cold. Okay, this water is coming up from the equator. I'm not saying if you go swimming in the Atlantic in Maine that it's going to be really warm. It's not. Okay, it's probably going to, but it's had time to get up there. But for the most part, this water is warm. That's cold because it's come from the equator. That's one of these things, currents, cold water, air, it moves the Earth's solar radiation distribution, all that fun jazz. This is the same thing. Ocean currents and sea levels. Oh, look how it moves. Prevailing winds. So this is kind of the same thing. So along the equator, you have what's called the doldrums. The doldrums is this area where there is no wind. So think, oh, it's so dull and boring, these doldrums, because there's no wind. If you were a sailor and you got caught here, you'd be in a whole lot of trouble because your sail ship ain't going anywhere. We don't need to talk about that. El Nino and La Nina, the little boy, the little girl. All right, so we'll talk about this with Latin America too and with Southeast Asia. So what this is it's just a change in the weather, okay? It's the warming of the Pacific Ocean. Okay, so generally speaking, the Pacific Ocean should get warm, some should come to us, some should go to Southeast Asia. But then there's like this weather phenomenon that happens, and you have El Nino and you have La Nina. The little boy and the little girl fight, okay? So the little boy and the little girl fight. The little boy takes all the precipitation with him and he runs away to one of them. The little girl, she gets none. She's dry. All right? So El Nino is like it reverses. Whichever one has the little boy, they're the ones that get all the rain. Whichever one has the little girl, they're the ones that have the dry, arid climate. So if all of a sudden Southeast Asia, Australia gets the little boy, they get El Nino, okay? They get all this precipitation. Whereas up here for La Nina, okay, that's when we get drought. This is just saying like winds, the direction they come from. So like, oh, the westerlies were blowing. That means the wind was coming from the west. I talked about the doldrums. Oh my gosh, where have we seen this before? I've seen it, right? Oh yeah, last PowerPoint. All right, so let's go over this again because like I said, you're gonna need to know it. All right, so here's your mountain. It's a happy little mountain. Okay, so the happy little mountain's there. And the water, it rises because we know the water cycle. You've been learning the water cycle since the 5th grade. Or before, okay? What are you doing? How did it do that? Okay, so the water evaporates. It goes up into the air and it forms this big, heavy, happy cloud, okay? This happy cloud, he's sitting there, but he's like, I can't, I can't get by, okay? Think of it like a big board and it's just blocking it. And they're like, okay? Well, that causes all of this precipitation, okay? So it makes this lush. Lots of rain, lots of precipitation on this side of the mountain, all right? But then by the time the cloud gets over here, there's nothing left of him. He has no rain. He is now sad. There's nothing left of him. He's sad. So it's arid. It is dry. Another word would be desert, okay? But more importantly, since it is the lack of rain, it is what we call the rain shadow. Okay? Because a shadow is the lack of something. Okay, so your rain shadow is here. Rain, rain shadow, rain, rain shadow, rain, rain shadow. I hope that doesn't end up somewhere. That's embarrassing. All right, so rain shadow, the dry areas that develop on the leeward side of a mountain. So you have leeward and windward. All right, well, if you have your big cloud over here, okay, I'm the wind, I'm blowing that cloud, but he's not going anywhere. That's why this is the windward side. The windward side is the side you're going, and huffing and puffing, I'm gonna blow the rain down. Oh, so then there's the leeward side. The leeward side is the dry side. There's nothing over there. It's the rain shadow. All right, again, this type of rain is called the orographic effect. La 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 la. Okay, so this is talking about California coast. Oh, look, it's lush with vegetation. What? There's a desert on the other side? That must mean that the desert is part of a rain shadow. Miss Pullen, that's so cool. Oh, wait, look, we're done. Okay, have a good, happy hurricaning.